we're currently standing in a 23-year-old stand of artificially regenerated longleaf pine that was treated with a variable density thinning in 2016, followed with a prescribed burn about a month and a half ago or so, January or February 2020. Now, I showed you in a previous video, depending on what order you're watching these, an unthinned longleaf pine plantation that we were managing primarily for pine straw management, or pine straw production. This is actually the same stand of trees. So this was a huge, 200-acre piece that we have on our Cameron Morrison Forest Management area. We just left the piece that I showed you out of this thinning treatment. So these trees were planted at the same time, same nursery stock, same everything. Just this one has been thinned. Now, I mentioned it's a variable density thinning. And what we're trying to do out here is, if you were to look behind me and go, I don't know, about a half a mile, you're going to end up on the Sandhills game lands. And there are a lot of red-cockaded woodpeckers over there, and we have reason to believe that they fly into this area. So it's our objective here to get some of this property to better host some of those red-cockaded woodpeckers, so improve the habitat quality on our side of the property line, contribute to that greater goal of habitat restoration in the Sandhills region. So this sitting as a high-density plantation wasn't really meeting that goal for us. Instead of coming in and just doing a normal row thin like we would normally do in like a loblolly plantation or a more timber-oriented longleaf plantation, because you can do it in there too, we decided to vary up the thinning a little bit. So our target that we gave our contractor was really to thin this thing to between about 40 square feet per acre and 90 square feet per acre. So it changes depending on where you are in the stand, and it changes pretty randomly, and that's our purpose. And that was our objective. We didn't want it to be uniform. We didn't want it to have a geometric sense to it like you might see in a more industrial ownership. So if you look up and around right now, we're in a gap. So there's skips, gaps, and thins. There's areas that we didn't really thin. There's areas that we did thin heavily. And then there's areas that we took out the entire overstory, and we hope to get a little bit of regeneration in here. It was a little bit of a challenge to talk the logger into doing it, but once they got the hang of it, they actually really kind of enjoyed doing it, mainly because they got a little bit more wood off at this site than they thought they were going to. The way we approached it was we had them do a row thin first, saw how they did as far as skinning up the trees. The logger did a really good job out here, so once they finished up that row thin, we then had them go back down the rows and further reduce the density in a more random way. So once that was done, we waited for the weather to cooperate and funding to come in, and then we hired the North Carolina Forest Service district office out of Rockingham to come in here and do an understory prescribed burn for us, and these are the results that you're seeing. So I'm very happy with it. The people that have been out here to see it have been happy with it, and this is just an example of trying to move a plantation towards a more natural forest structure for that end goal of recovering red-cockaded woodpecker and improving their habitats. So with that, I'll stop and shoot another video.